No niin, as we say in Finland, now it's time to go forward in the program, and I invite Heidi Himmanen, who is going to take a look at the regulatory frameworks and its effect on resilience. So Heidi, please.
Yes, thank you very much. So you might know me already from yesterday. I hope so. My task is typically to challenge and inspire people working with research and development, and to give the perspectives on how we, as in regulation and policy making, how we support the tasks and how you can influence our work. So you've seen this picture many times, but me and Maria were involved in drawing this picture. And the sustainability and security and resilience are there because of the impacts from the governments of Finland, UK and Germany. They reflect the European values that we think are very important in this common context. It was not coming from the industry, but it's something we see a big societal impact of 6G, and that's why these overarching design principles are included here, among others. And I have been talking about resilience, and that we need researchers to look into this 6G resilience topic for about more than 2 years. So in that sense, I'm really happy that we are in a 6G resilience summit here. And yeah, you know, the capabilities also include security and resilience. And here you can see how we define that in the capabilities of 6G. It is not only the resilience capability that actually contributes to the resilience, but it's one important part of it. So why is this work important? It's actually, in ITUR, we have defined the global vision for 6G. So everybody works together towards the same goal. This framework document, where you can find the pictures you just saw, was published in 2023. Recommendation on a new framework on IMT 2030. And yeah, you might have heard that we are working towards the global standards for 6G, and this is the way. This work in ITUR is for the radio access network, not the end-to-end system. It's on the radio access network. And right now, the work is to define technical performance requirements, evaluation criteria and methodology, and submission templates. And that is based on the work that we did in the framework document. So now we define the technical values for what is required from a 6G radio access network. And then you can see that in 28-29, we have the first evaluations of the technology proposals from INT 2030. So any technology that wants to call itself IMT 2030, which is the ITU name for 6G, they have to pass this process. They are evaluated by ITUR. So this is the pre-standardization of 6G. So all technology proposals, for example, from 3GPP, go through this evaluation process. And of course, this evaluation will continue. There will be more proposals. It doesn't end by 2030, but the technology is developing. Okay, that was it on the ITU. One thing to add is that as these overarching design principles are defined now for the radio access network, well, I also represent Finland in ITUT and next year in the ITU Plenipotentiary Conference. I think it's very important to use these overarching design principles not only on the radio access network but on the whole system, and I will be working towards that. I hope that every one of you who is influencing standardization also take this into consideration, and I know that you are. I discussed with some people already about that. So I also want to touch upon private and local networks. That is, we made a study that was published last year in December on the local and private networks in Finland to understand the current status and the future needs. And what we found was that there is a lot of untapped potential, but it's a growing market. You heard this about the local networks also in Maria's presentation, and how, I mean, the development to make spectrum available for local and private networks has been like a common journey. So we opened up the 2.3 gigahertz band with only 20 megahertz of spectrum for the first first band for local networks. Then there was 4G technology available for that band, and let's say the harbors, the industry plants who wanted to be forerunners and experiment could do that. One of the reasons we heard from the users of local networks or private networks is the security, resilience, it's that you can control the data yourself, is that you can tailor the network for your own needs. And maybe in the future we will see also 5G URLLC use cases more in these private networks, and also the 6G HRLLC usage scenarios, which I think that actually are best to be implemented in these private networks. So a private network can be a local network on local mobile network frequencies or on mobile operators' frequencies. You can collaborate with an operator, or you can apply for a spectrum. But that's a local network. If you want to have a private network with large geographical coverage, then you should collaborate with the mobile network operators, the national, and utilize network slicing in their 5G networks. And what is important now is that we have been working a lot to harmonize spectrum for local networks in EU, and it's a 3.8 to 4.2 gigahertz band. We have the Commission decision now, and next year Traficom and many other authorities, spectrum authorities in Europe will work to make this available for private networks in whole EU. And by harmonization, we create a common system, a common equipment ecosystem. And quite early, when the local private networks became popular or started to be implemented, our Cybersecurity Center also has produced a guideline on the cybersecurity risk management for these local mobile networks. And that's very important actually, because now we have organizations implementing mobile networks who are not maybe have all the experience of the mobile network operators. So this is to guide on the risks and how you make the networks secure. The guideline is only available in Finnish, but there's some hints on how you can find it on the Traficom website. If you're really interested, I guess you can use some AI to translate that. Then I want to go to Finland's 6G roadmap. It's been published this summer and translated into English, also published 2 months ago, I think. It is, as far as I know, the only national 6G roadmap that is developed by government organizations. It was a work done under the Ministry of Transport and Communications, but they borrowed me to help them, so actually been quite heavily involved in this work. And it was done together with many universities, companies, with the stakeholders. So it's a common vision. And this is the picture I actually drew to give the vision on one page. So we want to be pioneers in secure and trusted mobile communication technologies. And it involves regulation, availability of spectrum. We want the Finnish companies and European companies to be players in 6G. We see the importance of influence of 6G standardization. We think we are a leading country in R&D and I in 6G and want to remain so. We want to promote sustainable development and energy efficiency, and security should be a built-in feature in technology and regulation. Now, yesterday I was thinking about the terminology, and when I think about this 6G roadmap, I think we also somehow resilience is built in here, but sometimes we put it under security topic, sometimes we put it under other topics, but it's actually present everywhere in all these different parts of this picture. But I think it's quite important to also have resilience taking into account in regulation, in standardization, and so on. And of course the research. So how we will get there to have 6G in operation in Finland, and how do we see this international collaboration and work, how it's related to or how it is enabling actually the uptake of 6G. So of course we see that 4G and 5G will be there, and they will still develop, at least 5G. And 4G is very important still. But 6G development is ongoing. So we have the technical requirements and specifications ongoing, as I described. And the development of the first 6G standards will be here in the coming years. And of course here 3GPP has a very important role. And we see that new 6G networks and services will be adopted in 2030. We want to be among the first to also have the 6G networks in operation, and we are working to enable that. And they will, of course, evolve during the 2030s. And the milestones towards this is there are many different regulatory steps on the way. We are waiting for the EU Digital Network Act, and it will be published in the recent information that is that we will have a proposal from the Commission in January. And this new legislation and all the preparations behind this really looks into 6G and new emerging technologies that 6G also supports. So it's politically well recognized in EU. And I am currently, as I said, leading the work on the EU 6G spectrum roadmap. And that is something we are developing together with the other member states. And we will publish this next year. The timeline is to have a proposal available for you to comment on in February. And it's very much based on the 6G strategic vision that Maria was also referring to in her presentation. And then you can see the WRC's World Radio Conference, ITUR, the spectrum management globally. And we have one conference in 27 and one in 31. And these will have impact on the spectrum that we can have available in Europe for 6G. And then you can see the network licenses. So they are issued by the government for the operators, the national networks, and we have some important milestones coming ahead. So the 2.6 gigahertz licenses expire in 29, and the other licenses expire in 2033. Before 2033, actually, we hope to be able to award new licenses, new spectrum for 6G, which will come into force in 2030. That is the upper 6 gigahertz band we are referring to. So when we renew these network licenses, there is an opportunity to put more, to evaluate, for example, the coverage, service requirements, and perhaps something on resilience, I don't know. Let's see. But that's the opportunities to put the obligations into the spectrum licenses. So please take a look at this Finland 6G roadmap. It's available online in English. As I said, this is just a teaser, but we have identified key steps. We divided the topics into 4 different categories: regulatory and spectrum work, network security, standardization, and R&D activities and competitiveness of businesses. And under all these categories, we have identified 4 key steps. And some of them might be from a Finnish perspective, but they are actually quite internationally applicable. So I think it's of interest to you. Resilience is mentioned under network security and reliability, and also new technologies and open interfaces. And it's mentioned also under the standardization part. We see it as important also there, and of course on the R&D activities. So even if we don't have resilience in specific like headings, you can find it. It's included in the document. it's resilient by design, I think. So this is the things that we think that should be worked on, these steps to enable up 6G in 2030. Okay, I think I will skip this. It's you can find this in the document, so just have a look on the key steps. I think that's the most interesting part. So, to the discussion. These are the things that I also touched upon in the panel session yesterday. We think that resilience and extended coverage really go together. And this is something I took directly from the ITUR work that we have been contributing to just recently. And this proposal was made by Japan, Finland, and UK to really have resilience and extended coverage as a common, defined as a common or requirements. We see that the non-terrestrial networks will be very important to contribute to extended coverage and resilience. That's satellite, but also IMT base station on high altitude platform stations. So that's what HIBS means. It's like HAPS, but with an IMT base station. Base stations on board vehicles, airships or vessels will extend the coverage. A huge challenge for spectrum management. Huge. We haven't solved this yet. And also, of course, other mechanisms to within the terrestrial component of IMT to really provide extended coverage. And important topics to work on: end-to-end security and resilience in standardization and regulation. So now we have been working on the radio access network, but really I'm concerned about the end-to-end and that we really need to have this built in the whole system. It might be different types of solutions. Some of them might be like regulations from Traficom, requirements for the operation, or there might be some international standardization or recommendations. And then innovative solutions for electricity supply. I'm happy to be able to discuss this yesterday with some colleagues here, and I really encourage you to work on this further. Because we know that the electricity is vital for the resilience. But also innovative solutions to improve coverage and quality. So in the rural areas, to get the services to everybody. Digital inclusion, because that's also one of the overarching design principles in 6G, connect the unconnected. How do we solve this? Maybe overlapping coverage, self-healing networks, but the ad hoc networks are also really important, and that means tactical networks, that means temporary networks for different types of events, and also the moving base stations, for example, in Finland actually really trialed already on forestry machines. You just take the 5G network with you as you go. Challenges us as spectrum regulators, in spectrum management. Moving base stations it's really hard, but we will solve it. We need to understand the needs to do our work well. Actually, many outdoor antenna solutions and combinations of different networks, quite interesting. For example, in the 5G Advanced for Digital Maritime Operations project financed by Business Finland that I was involved in, having outdoor antennas on the ships and just combining all signals that you can get, and trials made between Finland and Sweden, roaming from Finland to Åland to Sweden, works quite nicely. And then, of course, the national roaming, currently discussed in emergency conditions, but can actually be done already by agreements between operators. So thank you very much.
Yeah, well, interesting thought about that 6G roadmap. So if we think about it, that it's a 2025 now, we have about 4 years. So it's not that long time that, you know, if we want to have some real networks up and running 2030, so there should be already quite concrete plans how to do it. And I think in Finland we have, you know, quite a lot of competencies, but we don't have everything. So we don't have the modems, we don't have the chipset and so on. So do we have some kind of plans or even ideas that how we will get those companies working together with us? That, you know, is what Finland has to offer, that, you know, the companies from Taiwan or from the United States would come to Finland and you know, start experimenting 6G here. And then yet an kind of a additional challenge or additional thing is that, you know, why would Finnish operators, why would they cooperate with that kind of a plan? Any ideas?
Yes, you're right, and I think that is something that, this is like a common 6G roadmap. So it includes the tasks that are supported by Business Finland, the activities in the universities, and as you said, the test networks are quite important. If you think we can support that in some way, we're happy to, but I think maybe it's more about you, other people here in the room, to enable that kind of collaboration. I didn't really understand the question about why the operators would collaborate, because I think they want to be early adopters and really learn. So I don't see the problem.
For sure, the operators, you know, they are experimenting, but, you know, when you are doing an R&D and experimenting, it's not going to be profitable. It's not going to kind of pay back immediately. So then typically what you think is that, you know, you will do some experiments and then you are able to export that, or, you know, you are able to somehow monetize the experience that what you get when you are the early mover. Because if we look at like 5G, for example, in Europe and in Finland, we haven't been the forerunners in that technology. It has been somewhere else. So then, you know, for the 6G, and I fully agree that, you know, that's what we should do, but it's more like that, you know, how do we create an incentives for these different players that are needed? Because it's as you know, it's a very complex ecosystem to get it done.
I think I will pass this question to the next speaker, who is from Business Finland, because it's a very good one.
Yeah, thank you for your presentation. Very interesting. One of the presentations we had today was on hybrid networks, and that resilience actually comes from combining different networks, non-terrestrial networks, which might operate European or globally, national networks. So you might combine even more than one national networks or private networks. And today all these are provided by different service providers who have their own commercial interests, right? Do you think that, you know, in some way there needs to be someone providing this network of networks, right? So what will that role be? And do you think the market will create this, or will there be some regulation needed to get this all together?
Yes, well, I think the resilience comes from that we have many different infrastructures and the opportunities to use. I see actually that we have very many mobile networks in Finland. Every operator on each spectrum band can be seen as its own network. So in that sense, we already have a resilience. The local networks will bring more. I don't think we need some regulator or government actor to orchestrate all this, to be like an operator of a network of networks. I don't see that necessary, but our role is more to have the general view and to understand which networks are important and why, and really to support then the resilience of the whole system.
Yeah. No, but then that means the market needs to solve it, right? Meaning that all the different commercial interests of the different companies, like satellite service providers and network operators, and they all need to find a way how it fits together, I think, which I think will be a huge challenge. I think the biggest challenge to get this networks of network to work.
We have many challenges in the satellite sector still to solve. Yes, especially there. But we are enabling the spectrum for all these networks. So in that sense, we are orchestrating, but it's the spectrum management.
Thank you. Thank you very much for these very important messages, and thank you for your involvement in this big work in the ITU. I have a question regarding the private sector's spectrum in France, in Germany. Here there are different ways, I guess, and the point is to like the verticals to develop innovation. They need this private spectrum. So my question is with regards of public operators, as there is auction there for for the spectrum. How do you see, not only in Finland, the balance between the development of the private 5G verticals with regards of public operators also running radio services? Do you think that we need somehow? I get back to the topic with Ari about the roaming also between, private, for example, 5G to public 5G. What is your opinion as a regulator about that?
Well, yeah, first of all, we try to make the spectrum available, and the message that we got was that we want to be able to build similar kinds of networks in different European countries, and that's why we did the spectrum harmonization. So that's something that was influenced by the users and by the research. I think that, the different operators can take different strategies in how they want to support the private networks. And it's up to them. In Finland, I think they do it quite well. And we have a way of collaboration. And as I said, there are no regulatory constraints to enable roaming. So it's actually up to just agreements. I think I haven't heard any issues that we should solve related to this yet, because I think that our operators are quite collaborative.